לא, פשוט מסתכלים בזה, פעמים זה האינטרנט, שלא מצליחים להגיע, לגלות שלג, אנחנו קצת מתחשבים. Okay, so we left off. We are on the.
I want to say the second page, first paragraph, second paragraph.
I was going to first full paragraph.
I think we did the cause and the effect, the object itself, and its associated qualities.
Okay, I'll just repeat that last paragraph real quick. And B'ezrat Hashem, I hope that the Shi'ur should be Ma'il for all of Israel, in particular for the Rufah Shlema of Nir ben Shoshana. A very dear friend of mine who had three discs in his back collapsed because of a truck accident. So he had them replaced on Thursday. Last Monday, 18th. Okay, yes, we had just started in the Hashkafa section of the Shi'ur. We just started the Sefer Derekh Hashem of the HaRav Moshe Haim Luzzato. He writes very generally about the way things work in the physical and non-physical world. In other words, what we need to remember when we're doing our mitzvot, what Hashem wants from us, what we can and should expect from Hashem, what we should not expect from Hashem, in very beautiful form. It's a book of perspective, really, explaining things that some of us might have already heard, but he organizes it in such a way as to make it really a pure book of hashkafa. Here is how we interact with Hashem, how Hashem interacts with us, what our mitzvot do, what our avirot do. Very good. So, we mentioned, we left off last week. We'll go ahead, Lena, we'll make around the Rabbi.
There are, however, certainly primary elements that must be recognized as part of the essential nature of each concept. Out of all the levels and categories, one should be able to distinguish the following: the whole and the part, the general and the particular, the cause and the effect, and the object itself and its associated qualities.
Right. In other words, without examples, this is a little bit difficult to understand. There are primary elements, in other words, there are basic things that need to be understood when it comes to the non-physical world. So here's a very tricky subject. Whenever we talk about the non-physical world, we talk about things that have no shape, take up no space, that have no body, and do not change. The non-physical world does not change. In the physical world, things grow, they get smaller, they live, they die, they fall apart. They get joined up. So this is only true of the physical world. The spiritual world, the non-physical world, we're used to referring to it as a world in which things don't move, they don't change, they're not susceptible to decay, decomposition, etc. Nonetheless, one thing that is very clear about the non-physical world is that it too has levels to it. Okay, not physical levels like first floor, second floor, third floor. It has levels like higher, lower, closer to, if we can say such a thing, closer to the physical world, more abstract, more distant from the physical world. And what happens when we consider how the non-physical world works, we need to appreciate that things there have a place and they have a context. So take, for example, is it true or is it not true that mitzvot, some of them are more particular and some of them are more general? Fair thing to say?
They're all pretty particular.
Or particular in that they have details. Okay, so we have a mitzvah like shiluach hakil. If I want to take the eggs of a bird or I want to take the chicks, I can't take them without sending away the mother. Mitzvah of shechita. You want to eat meat, you have to first, as Alman can demonstrate for you, you want to eat meat, he's a great head holder. If you would like to eat meat, then you need to first perform shechita, etc. So this is the mitzvah that's going to bring the Mashiach. I mean, if all we need to do is hold down animals and kill them in order to bring the Mashiach, then maybe I'm him. I may as well reveal myself. So it's a mitzvah that pertains to a particular aspect, a particular area of life. Then you have mitzvot like, we're going to see this a little bit later in Kibbutz Avayim, Et Hashem Elokecha Tirah. The Torah tells us you have an obligation to have a fearful respect of God. So if I had to put on a scale fearful respect of God and the mitzvah to chase the mother bird away before I take her eggs, Which mitzvah would you say is maybe more general? Perhaps you could even get away with saying it's on a higher level. It's more inclusive, more general, more applicable almost all the time, if not all the time. So is it fair to say such a thing, that one mitzvah is more general, more inclusive, and another mitzvah is a little bit more specific, more particular, more limited in its scope? You're mad at me.
No, I agree with you.
Say it to my face. Tell me the truth.
I'm mad at you.
Okay. Is it possible? Are we still friends if I say such a thing? I have a mitzvah to love Hashem, and I have a mitzvah...
Tefillin, you only put it on a certain time of day.
Okay, putting on tefillin, sure.
For example,
Or if I have to give turumot ma'asrot, so what if I don't have a field? This is a whole area of Torah that doesn't even apply to me, in theory. I mean, I can't eat from the things that didn't have turumot ma'asrot taken from them.
Mitzvot only for Kohanim, only for women, only for...
Correct, mitzvot for women, mitzvot for men, mitzvot for Kohanim, for Leviim, mitzvot that only apply when Beit HaMikdash is around. So there are mitzvot that are more particular, more specific, and mitzvot that are more general. V'ahavta l'orecha kamocha. And the mitzvah of not lending with interest. Can one be said to be more general, more inclusive, more, perhaps even on a higher level of importance than the other? I don't lend people money every day. If anything, I might be in a position to borrow. But lending or borrowing money is one thing. It's one particular area of life. You should love your fellow Jew like you love yourself. Does that apply all the time?
He's not a nice guy, though.
And also, even if he's mean. Does this apply to a husband and a wife? Am I exempt from V'ahavta l'orecha kamocha because I don't like the way she behaves when she's talking to her mother? Random example, never came up. So is it possible for me to say, I'll strike that from the recording. Is it possible for me to say that V'ahavta l'orecha kamocha applies between me and pretty much every other person ever, always in the world, at all times and in all places? So this is a more general mitzvah. In order to make sense of the non-physical world, and what the expectations are of you here in the physical world, you need to appreciate that there are mitzvot that are more general and that apply most of or all of the time in every circumstance. Mitzvot that are more particular. Who cares? Well, how many mitzvot can you do at once? If I need to choose, if I need to prioritize on my time or my money, because I don't have much of either, then I'm going to invest my time and my money in the mitzvot that are root mitzvot, the mitzvot that are priorities, the mitzvot that are more inclusive, more general, and I can work from there on the particulars. That's not a bad thing to say. Just today we had a review in class, in fact, the halachot of Shi'ur, and the halachot of conversion. So believe it or not, you don't need to know the entire Torah in order to convert. You need to accept the mitzvot and the avirot that are in the Torah, but you don't need to know everything in order to convert. We teach Girim, hopefully, most of the crucial mitzvot, most of the crucial avirot, and from there we assume that you're going to pick up the rest in due time. Is it wrong of me to start from mitzvot that are more general and that apply more often? You almost have to do this. There isn't any way around this. So there is such a thing, it's mitzvot that apply all the time, and you will be required to respect them all the time, and therefore you should invest most of your efforts in learning them. So that's okay. That's the way the non-physical world works. There are low levels and there are high levels. Do any of you know people who are obsessive compulsive? Now that Yael entered the room. Any of you know people who are a little bit obsessive-compulsive about certain particular areas of halakha and a little bit ignorant about kind of general, maybe higher-level mitzvot? You never met anyone like that. Baruch Hashem, had the zechut of being saved from these bizarre encounters with these aliens who believe that these small particular mitzvot are what God really wants from everyone, and the bigger general mitzvot are for people who don't do anything else.
There's a whole population in Israel today. Like
Yeah. Like kashrut, they're
I may or may not agree with that statement on the recording.
and Derekh Hashem is another story.
So here you end up with a lack, not of emunah, it's an ignorant form of emunah. It's people, it's not that they don't believe, they just have very peculiar or bizarre beliefs. Where do these peculiar and bizarre beliefs come from? They come from a lack of emunah, a lack of studying emunah. Meaning, you can claim to have emunah, lots of people do. Come on, Rabbi, I'm a traditional Jew. Really, what's traditional about you? Well, I make Kiddush and then I drive to the movies. Did your grandparents make Kiddush and drive to the movies? Did your grandparents make Lela Seder and then go to the beach the following day? That's tradition. So there are certain traditions that you respect and keep, and there are certain traditions that you don't. That's actually not so traditional. In fact, if anything, there are probably more mitzvot that you don't keep than mitzvot that you do. So be honest and say, I keep some mitzvot. And there are mitzvot that I'm not so sensitive to. That's fair. That's an honest thing to say. So why do you have groups of people who have really bizarre beliefs and have difficulty presenting them? By the way, a great example of this, whoever was around Mincha and Shabbat, we had a discussion about organ donors. So you have the opportunity to save a life, and then you have people that are very sensitive to certain relatively technical mitzvot that may or may not be an issue. So the story that Rabbi was telling us about this rabbi who came, was a learned guy, and he said, no, this child that was effectively brain dead, no, we can't use his organs. We can't donate them to other people unless they're Jewish, but the hospitals don't accept that. So it was a whole back and forth. In the end, a little bit after, shortly after the child had already died, he finally managed to convince him that it's okay. Most of the rabbis in Israel accept this. We should do this. They managed to save 5 out of 8 organs they were hoping to save. And the heart went to a black child in Harlem, and 4 other organs all went to Jewish kids, although it wasn't, the hospitals didn't do this on purpose. The kids that were next on the list happened to get them. So you have the opportunity to save a life, and you have this concept of maybe delaying the burial by a few minutes or something. Okay, but there's pikuach nefesh and other things. So you will find there's no shortage of examples of things like this. I gave you an example of one guy that I knew who spent over $2,000 on his tefillin and just shouted at his wife 1,000 times a day. I couldn't stand being next to this guy. So where do these things come from? They come from people with very perverse understandings of what Hashem really wants. Many people will tell you, all Hashem wants is that you be a nice person. Okay, but being a nice person, there are a lot of aspects and details to that. There are nice people who are very permissive, there are nice people who allow themselves to be abused, there are nice people who just don't do anything. Can be nice but never offending anybody's may actually accomplished anything in life. Not offending people is a great accomplishment, don't get me wrong, but you can accomplish that by sleeping. If you'd like to do something productive with your life, it might mean no offense to anyone in particular. If you'd like to accomplish something a little bit more meaningful in life, it might mean getting up and getting dressed and going somewhere, and on occasion maybe even showering, etc. So these corruptions of emunah, these perversions of perspective, all come from this lack of understanding of the big picture. There is a reason for things. There is a system, there is a hierarchy, there are things that are more important. Whenever things come into conflict, whenever you have some kind of halachic or hashkafic dilemma, you need to be learned enough to say, this mitzvah is more important than that one. Every day I learn Torah at a certain time. Today it happens to be that someone really needs my help. Or a friend of my wife's is just having a baby. Or someone got sick and needs a visit, etc. So I have my regularly scheduled mitzvot, and then I have these spontaneous opportunities to do something nice. It's not every day that a really good friend of mine has surgery. So now I'm in a tough spot. What do? Well, learning Torah is the most important thing. He'll have to figure it out. And then what happens when you need help? Do you expect people to come drop what they're doing and come help you? Why is that? Is it fair of you to expect this and not to do it? Is this how you manage all of your relationships? Are you currently seeing a therapist? So there are things that probably the truth is all of us have this somewhere. Because we all have this bizarre tendency to like certain mitzvot and not like others, or to prefer certain amirot and to ignore others. We're all guilty of this, just in different ways. Some of us are super sensitive to kashrut, a little bit less so to Shabbat. Some of us are really sensitive to Shabbat, a little bit less so about the way we talk, the way we dress, the way we speak, etc. That's all this. We're all guilty of this in some form or another. And that's basically what he's trying to say. So there's the whole and there's the part. So maybe we could say something like "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha." That's a really general mitzvah. You know who said this? I didn't say it. I wish I did. I wish I had the copyright on that, but I don't. You know who said that?
God.
Okay, well, the pasuk is quoted from God, yes. But "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha."
Okay, then.
Rabbi Akiva said it. Bet Hillel himself said it when this famous story with the ger, from the expression "doing something on one foot."
Yeah.
It's the origin of the expression. There's this potential candidate for conversion. I'm helping Arman review for our final next Wednesday or Thursday. Like you don't even know.
There's
Thursday.
so many of them.
Yeah. So this candidate for Giur approaches Shammai first, and he tells Shammai, "Your Torah is great, it's beautiful, it's fascinating, but it's huge. It's enormous. No way I'm going to learn all this. Can you teach me the Torah on one foot?" Shammai thinks for a second. He says, "This guy's a clown." The answer is no, can't be done. Too much to tell. The general, the specific, the capital punishments, corporal punishments, the reward for the mitzvot, olam hazeh, olam haba, gehinnom. Too much. Obviously, the guy wasn't so serious. Hillel, when he comes and asks him the same question, he says to him, "Okay, good question. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, right? V'ahavta l'orecha kamocha is a very overarching, perhaps the most important of the general rules in the Torah. Right? זה כלל גדול בתורה. ואידך, זה לגמור. The rest of it, you'll learn. I mentioned this in class. Ger has to know certain things, other things, you'll pick up with time. What does that mean? That's the only mitzvah he has to know. The only mitzvah that counts. The only mitzvah that means anything. This is the end-all be-all, so I can love my fellow Jew and still worship idols, and I'm considered a good Jew. Well, it's a really general, inclusive mitzvah. Other mitzvot might be viewed as a part of it, a branch of it, a particular area of it. So maybe if I lend to somebody money without interest, I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of lending someone who needs the help. I'm fulfilling the negative commandment of not lending with interest. So I lend you money without interest. And at the same time, every time I do some form of chesed, I get a little bit of credit for Avtal L'Orecha Kamocha too. So the general rule is, what he says to him in Aramaic, Avtal L'Orecha Kamocha, D'saneh alach lechavrach la ta'abid. He says to him like this, Avtal L'Orecha Kamocha, literally, you should love your peer, your fellow Jew, as you love yourself. D'saneh alach lechavrach la ta'abid. What you hate, don't do to someone else. Think about things that you like and things you don't like. Avoid doing the things that you don't like to other people. They probably don't like them too. And the rest of the Torah you're going to learn. So every time you do something nice for someone, aside from the particular mitzvah you may have done, there's also that general mitzvah of Avtal L'Orecha Kamocha. So start there. You might not even know the mitzvah and get it right. There are particular areas of life that you may not even be familiar with the halachot that pertain to them, but if you have this general rule in mind, you'll probably get it right 8, 9 out of 10 times. So it's a general mitzvah, and there are other mitzvot that are considered parts of this. So maybe before you get to the details of learning particular mitzvot, learn the big ones, learn the important ones, learn the inclusive general ones, and the rest of them you'll figure out. And that's the point that he's making. They're whole, and there are holes, and there are parts. There's the general, the particular, the cause and the effect, object itself, and its associated qualities. Sometimes you avoid a certain avirah, or you do a certain mitzvah because it brings certain characteristics out. You have discussions like this in Moran Buchim, for example, the Rambam, and then the Ramban, on the reasons, the rationales behind the mitzvot. Why is it that we do shiloh hakin? Why do you have to chase away the mother bird in order to take the eggs or the chicks? Is it out of respect for the mother? Is it out of respect for the creation? Is it a form of cruelty? Is this one of a variety of mitzvot that pertain to being merciful to animals? Is that really our goal, to be merciful to animals? Does that come at the expense of being merciful to people? So if I see someone's donkey suffering, literally crouching under weight because it has too much on its back, my mitzvah is to help the animal. Do I have such a mitzvah to help people? Fascinating discussion, the Rishonim. If I have such a mitzvah, you have a horse or an ox or a donkey, and you put too much weight on it and it's falling. So I have a mitzvah to go help this animal, take things off its back, etc. Do I have such a mitzvah when it comes to people? One opinion holds. You know what? People can choose, do the right thing, do the wrong thing. You want to carry something heavy, it's up to you. The animal has no choice. The animal, you stuck things on its back, it's going to fall. What do you want it to do? Others say, if I have a mitzvah to help animals, why would I not have a mitzvah to help people? What if the people behave like animals? Good question, Andrea. I don't know. We'll talk about it after this. So, we live in New York City. It is what it is. Anyway.
As in all cases, it depends.
It may well depend, yeah. Question, David.
But in case of Torah study, so how do you consider that, general or particular?
Torah study may well be the most general of all the mitzvot. So you'll see in our generation, this is a very hotly contested topic. Why? Because Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, we have a Mishnah like this, right? In Masechet Pe'ah. We read in the Shachrit every day. We have all these things that have no minimum or maximum amounts, like mitzvot that you can't do enough of, or that you fulfill with a very minimal effort, but that really we should do more than this. Gimilut Chasadim, Kibud Avayim, we'll talk about that later. And then we have Talmud Torah. So what does the Mishnah say? Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. It's actually a braita after this. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Learning Torah is as valuable as all of them. Or maybe the right way to learn it, no individual mitzvah is more important than this. Maybe some of these situations where you have a certain urgency or a certain need or a certain responsibility, your job is to fulfill it this way. So if you're learning Torah, great. If you're not learning Torah, you have the opportunity to help your parents and also do, v'ahavta l'orecha kamocha, etc. Then that opportunity you won't pass up. If it's a general thing, so okay, you need to make a living. You can lend money, you can borrow money, you can do shechita, you can build and put a rail around the roof, all these other mitzvot that you can fulfill, work in agriculture and observe those mitzvot. But learning Torah is never going to be set aside for anything that doesn't have a really urgent justification to it. I have to put on tefillin, I have to read Shema, I have to sit in a sukkah, I have to, bake matzot. So whatever you're doing has to be explained. Really, I should be learning Torah, but I have an obligation or responsibility to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z. But because that obligation is during the day, it's during the night, it's for everybody, men and women, so it's a very, very general mitzvah. In fact, so general is it that we learn Torah in order to do the mitzvot. That famous paradox. I'll talk a little bit about that. But the idea of what's more important, learning or doing? Well, maybe doing because you get things done. Okay, but how do you know that you're doing right? You don't. Unless you're learning the details of mitzvot, learning the halachot. Classic example, tzedakah. Tzedakah is great. When do you give? How much do you give? What's giving too much? What's not giving enough? Who's entitled? Who's not entitled? Who's abusing? Who's not abusing? What do you have to check? What do you have to look into? Who's more entitled than the next guy? Friends, family, community. What counts as tzedakah? Doesn't count as tzedakah. So lots of details. So it's not just give as much as you can all the time. You have to prioritize. And again, you prioritize based on what? Based on your own ideas, based on your own imagination, or based on halachic discussions and valid proofs and arguments, etc. Yafi. So we continue. Thus,
When one examines something, he should first determine whether it is a whole or a part, a general category or a detail, a cause or an effect, an object or a property.
so everything falls into a category. It has some form of hierarchy. There are things that are more important than it, and it is more important than something else.
Which is what bothers us about the indefinability of Hashem so much, because everything else in our reality is definable.
So this is interesting. Rav Rebbe would argue that very little of life is easily definable. The more godly something is, the less definable it is. How do you define love? I'm not a hippie. I mean, it's a very godly concept. So love is one. Huh?
We had doubts about this.
Yeah. I take the flowers out of my hair when I'm teaching. But how do you define? All the hair I have left. How do you define love? Is love manifest in, again, you'd be looking for a manifestation. In other words, it's an abstract concept. It's very difficult to define. So how can you identify that someone loves someone? Because they forgive them for things they otherwise wouldn't forgive other people? Yeah. My wife and I let certain things slide. I'll let you in on a secret. There are some things that she does that I don't bother or get irritated or annoyed over. Why? Because she's my wife. If I want her to stay that way, I have to, not do certain things, which is great. She doesn't test me all that often, so Baruch Hashem. It's maybe I don't have as much patience or tolerance for other people. I love my kids. God knows I put up with their names. So, is love a matter of forgiveness, a matter of tolerance, a matter of respect? Is it rational? Is it irrational? Is it super rational? Do I give this particular person more than I would give anyone else? There's such a thing as giving too much, so it becomes too difficult to define. Life, again, referencing that discussion we had at Mincha and Shabbat. What's life? What's death? What's, the balance? I don't want to pull the plug on somebody who's potentially alive, but then if we can harvest the organs, maybe we can save someone who otherwise might die. So these are very difficult questions. So other things are the more material it is, the more quantifiable it is, and therefore the easier it is to identify and discuss.
Just underscoring our obsession with defining things, because it's so unsettling to not know what something is.
And most of life is kind of like that. Yeah. We are very often in the dark, and we compare and contrast to things that we understand. And anyway, we do the best that we can. But even if you can't necessarily identify something, the fact that you can tell that something is higher than something else, something is more important or less important, or you can make decisions based on this. To be able to identify, the general concept of chesed, an opportunity came up, I can do it. I don't have to overthink it too much.
When he realizes its place in the general scheme, he can then realize the elements needed to complete his understanding and provide a precise general picture. If it is a part, then he will seek to discover its whole. If it is a particular case, he will seek to find its general category. If it is a cause, he will seek its effect. If an effect, its cause. If he finds some things to be a quality, he will seek to discover its subject. He will also strive to ascertain what kind of quality it is, whether it precedes, accompanies, or follows its subject, and whether it is intrinsic or accidental, potential or actual. All these are distinctions without which one cannot have a complete picture of anything's true nature.
Can I give you a classic example? Something right off the
Fantastic.
press. Yeah.
It boils all of reality into like 6 different parameters.
Basically his goal. So I'll give you a really good example. The parent-teacher conferences in the school this past Sunday, right? I can't wait till you all have kids and have to do this. So it's great, your child has certain accomplishments, certain joys, certain challenges, and naturally they blame you for everything. So, and teachers, of course, don't take responsibility for themselves. So we'll talk about that some other time. So, a child is doing something wrong. Never happened before, purely hypothetical situation, but let's assume there's a child doing something wrong. Cracking jokes in class, not doing his homework, etc., forgetting his book bag in your car, things like this. So, is this the nature of the child? So my child is a moron because he forgets things every so often. I can identify him this way, I can label him this way, and say, my apologies. Next year's teacher, I'll warn her ahead of time that this child's a moron, just be careful. Sometimes he forgets things. Well, I'm a moron too because I forget things all the time. Maybe this is just a manifestation of something else. There's a cause behind it. Well, what's the cause behind it? If this isn't the nature of, let's say, the definitionally of the child, then maybe there's a cause to this behavior. If you understand the cause to the behavior, maybe you can address the cause. Maybe the child forgets things, he doesn't like his homework. Maybe he doesn't like his teacher. What can I do in order to help abate this behavior and at the same time help the child, interact more or less productively in the classroom setting? So, is there a reason for a certain behavior? Is it the nature of the child, something difficult to change? Is it something we can address? Is it something we can work with? What would be the solution or the prescription? What would you suggest? Maybe this is not the right class. Maybe it's not the right school. Maybe it's not the right teacher. You can come to a bunch of crazy conclusions if you don't really analyze and understand the subject properly. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do. But obviously, if you see something happening and you don't know why, you don't know how to look at it and what context to put it in, you're definitely going to make some pretty crazy assumptions if you don't give the situation an honest, thoughtful analysis and try to come to reasonable, rational conclusions. You can test them. You have to be open to the fact that you might not have gotten it right. It's basically what he's saying. You see something, don't be quick to judge it. Don't be quick to act or to react. Make sure you know the context before you even get any of this done. And that's advice that's true of everything, but specifically when it comes to spiritual concepts that are hard to define, that are difficult to understand, that need a bit more of extra study.
When I first read this, I read this maybe a year ago, this introduction, and I remember asking myself a similar question then. I can see much of analysis in life boiling down to these kinds of parameters. I didn't see then, and I don't really see now, how you can apply this equation, so to speak, to creativity, to artwork, to music. I understand that artists draw on their life experiences, things that made them happy or sad, different places they were, or things they saw, and they connect them in their brains. But it seems almost at times to come out of thin air, like they're just piecing things in their mind in an almost subconscious way. And I don't see. I can understand, like, okay, I look at a computer and things are very kind of black and white in that world, or with numbers, or with
Very binary.
It's much more black and white. It's much more on and off,
So if I didn't know that you were a computer guy,
Right.
I would not know what context to put that question.
yeah.
So you're saying you understand things that are systematic, that are predictable, that have rules and regulations to them. Art is very abstract. People who are very artsy have no idea why anyone would want to sit in front of a computer. Graphic design, I could see that, but accounting, law, these are careers that aren't exceptionally appealing to people who have a creative bent to their personality. So you're asking where does art, where do expression fall in? Well, technical detail that the neshama is itself very abstract and difficult to define, but it does seek to manifest itself, to reveal itself in different ways. And when someone feels inspired, we can't create something. What we can do is design something. We can try to sort of encapsulate our state of motivation, inspiration, happiness, sadness, by the way. There's a whole sad side to art. Think blues. The songs of the slaves. Not all music is happy. It's just a way of expressing yourself. And by the way, music has rules. Anyone, even the most uninitiated, can tell if something is in key or out of key. There are fascinating discussions about this. Are we, is this something we're just hardwired to appreciate? Our musical scales, and there are lots of them. There's not just the, do re mi fa sol la ti do. Major and minor and pentatonic and all sorts of variations on it. Jazz, some people define it as music. How do you explain the fact there are certain things that are appealing and there are certain things that aren't? Yeah, between France and New York, I think that was a strikeout. All right, I can't stand it. I'm on tape. I can't stand jazz.
I've been told it's very complex.
Jazz?
Yeah.
Complex. You can pour a bunch of different buckets of paint on a painting and call it something else. It doesn't go anywhere. It's got no direction. It just kind of rambles. Anyway, but yes, musically, it's hard to define. I don't know if that makes it good. It's hard to define. I know people like that. So, basically, every art has rules to it. Every art has, I could prove it to you in a kind of roundabout way. We'll talk about this once. This is why artists are all depressed. Think musicians, famous ones, less famous ones, rock stars, all these people are depressed and so on, because they're being judged by a very, very, strict, almost a cruel set of standards. Music has to be perfect, otherwise it's terrible. Nobody pays money, like not even 89 cents for an Amazon MP3 download for a song that's like mediocre. You get 5 hits on YouTube, it's like your mother and your cousins. No one's going to buy half-baked music. So art for some reason gets an exemption, painting and modern art, don't ask me. But music has a very strict set of rules to it. It's time, it's harmony, counterpoint. Some people are more inclined to express themselves this way. And they express themselves in a way that's not just fun for them, but that's meaningful to other people too, who can identify with the same emotions. So think of theater, think of playwrights, think of novels, think of tragedies, tragicomedies. That cathartic feeling that you get when you see something, a situation that you've been in before, it almost makes you want to swear off that behavior and say, Shakespeare, same way. So artistic expression is just people's way of using the rules to express something, to get across an idea, to express an emotion, to condemn a certain behavior or a certain feeling. I mean, it's very much a rule-oriented thing. It's just a little bit more abstract than most people are used to because it's not so black and white. Music, even if it's transcribed, it's kind of hard to follow and understand. Not everybody appreciates it the same way, but it definitely requires a more sensitive. Say the same thing for anything. Food, really fancy gourmet food. The difference between that and McDonald's is lost on everyone in America, but there are cultures that appreciate good food. So yeah, it fits. It definitely fits. There is such a thing, and then it's a very high level. Think of Shira. David HaMelech played the harp. I mean, why would he do such a thing? Is that not bitul zman? Try to take a harp into a yeshiva today and see how they react. Hi, Rabbi so-and-so, this is my son. Aside from the fact that he forgets things and doesn't do his homework, he also likes to play the harp. Special ed, they'd send him to rehab. Why would anybody want to play harp? Why don't they play harp? The prophets played music. What do you want from them? Why don't we play music today? Probably because it's a very high form of expression. It's an extremely godly thing. We just don't know what to do with it, so we just erased it from the yeshiva.
I think that's what bothered me. I think you hit it on the head a couple of minutes ago when you said that the closer something is to a godlike quality, the more difficult it is to define. And I think that's what's been bothering me about fitting creativity into this bucket, is that creativity, the closer you get to actual creativity, like completely spontaneous, abstract creativity from almost nothingness, the closer you get to God.
And then we get back to the discussion on prophecy that we had a few months ago.
Or I could take it back to computers. I mean, there are some people that are good at programming code that someone else basically fed them. Here's what I want the program to do. You figure out in this language how to program it. And there are people who are good at coming up with programs. That's creativity.
Right.
That's taking a pretty big set of rules and saying these rules can be applied to this, that, or the other thing. Sometimes you can change
You
the
can say
rules.
it's the same, like what are you applying the
can
law
change-
to, or what are you applying,
Right.
etc. Yeah.
So the really high-paying jobs are the ones that are creative. The simple jobs, they farm out to India. The really high-paying jobs are the ones, people who can go sit in a bank and say, what do you need? I'll find a program that does it. Help you organize your data, help you,
Ideation,
work on the
like
internet.
creating,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so there you go. That's creativity.
Yeah.
In a computer kind of way that I'll never understand. But yeah, that's creativity. How to get the rules to do what you want them to, or to use them in order to get done what you want to get done. That's it. So art. I want to make a certain sculpture, a certain painting, compose a certain piece of music. There are rules. They're a bit abstract, and then you're more popular, considered more successful if you can appeal to more people, or at least in a more sophisticated way get a point across that maybe not everybody understands. But in prophecy is how different from that. Everybody
No, it's not,
understood and
right.
appreciated the prophets. They didn't all necessarily convey the same message or in the same way. Most of them were despised. So it's not like this appealed to the masses, but it was a nishmatic reflection of, a nishmatic expression of a godly message as I understand it and as I interpret it. So some prophets prophesied a lot, some prophesied a little, some didn't prophesy at all. But it's an expression, and they found the words to. What's prophecy? If you want to compare it to an art form, prophecy would be the highest possible concentration of godly truth in the smallest number of words. Think of it like that. Instead of telling a whole story, so Shakespeare has to design a whole play in order to appeal to the masses. That appeals to the masses, that's great. The prophet is trying to squeeze as much godliness as he or she can into as few words as possible, not even wasting a letter. Take a godly truth and just nail it. Here's the pasuk. Some of the psukim, I mean, they really resonate. A classic example of this is Yirmiyahu, when he's absolutely lambasting the nation for all the crazy things they were doing, all these crazy beliefs and their assimilation and their total ignorance of God and all the things he's done for them. So he puts it like this. These are the people who say to wood, meaning you pray to these wooden statues. You say to wood, you're my father, meaning like you pray to the wood as if it's your God. A piece of wood that you carved yourself. It just represents, okay, it's not so stupid. It represents an idea or a concept that inspires you in a certain way. So they say to the wood, you're my father, and to stone you say, like marble, you're the one who gave birth to me. Like, this is my father, this is my mother. Total ignorance of Hashem, of the Shekhinah, of the Neshama, these concepts. They turn their necks to me and not their faces. Like they have completely ignored me, I'm behind them. and yet they never cease, they never fail when things are bad to turn to me and say, please save me. Like up until now I was praying to the sticks and the stones and the marble and the fish and the birds and everything, the sun, the moon and the stars. And you never, like the biggest insult is that you come back to Hashem and say, please save me. Please save me now? Now you want my help? Now you decided that I'm the only one who can help you? It's amazing. You pray to inanimate objects, and yet whenever you fall apart, you always come around to this realization that maybe I need Hashem on my side. Maybe I did something wrong. It's this pasuk, I mean, it's classic, and you can compare this to your relationships with other people. I had a former student, called me a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I don't even know anymore. A week and a half or 2 weeks ago. Calls me up, what's going on? Said that he's been going out with a girl for a long time, he got engaged, and they broke off the engagement, they're trying to put it back on, etc. And while we're talking, he admits to having ignored a lot of the pieces of advice that I gave him while he was a student at YU. So, when he first called, he said, oh, how have you been? How are you doing? What's wrong? Like, he's laughing, why do you think something has to be wrong for me to call you? I said, no, I know something's wrong if you're calling me. What happened? I haven't heard from you for 2 years. Oh, well, if you're already asking, there's a whole story. He goes, I'm fine. So I got this really cute text message. It's nice because most people don't even bother with the text. Rabbi, I just want to thank you so much. That was really great advice that you gave me, and we're working on it. It's tough, but we're going to figure it out. And so I said, okay, no problem. We'll talk the next time you have a problem. Like, next time something goes right. If I don't hear from you, I'm sure things are great. I have no bigger simcha than this. People don't call me when they're happy. The fact that no one calls me for simple times, like everybody's doing great, they're all perfect, and everyone's succeeding. That's fantastic. I can't ask for better than this. So when you need something, people, you can tell who your friends are and who your real friends are when you actually need something. People come looking for you when they need something. It's a little bit of an insult. So it's not like we don't want people to come ask for your help when we can give it. It's just that we have this expectation that relationships be somewhat two-way, reciprocal. You know, like I'll help you and you'll help me. Or back to V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. It's nice when people think about each other and how we can help make each other's lives more pleasant. It's not so nice when one person takes advantage of another. When one person avails him or herself of all the help that you can offer and then offers you nothing in return, particularly when you need the help. But this is the nature of people, and so Yirmiyahu Hanavi is basically telling you, that this reality shakes the heavens and the earth. It is an injustice of biblical proportions. How on earth can you be such an insult to your Creator? What could you do to be more insulting to Hashem than ignore Him all the time, and then have the chutzpah to come back and say, please help me? So what does the Navi typically say in a situation like this? Have you already consulted the sun, the moon, and the stars? Did you talk to your wood and your stone today? Any of these things capable of helping you?
Would it be better if even in that situation he doesn't ask God? Like the whole purpose of sometimes, one of the explanations that you hear for these things is because they, is a way for you, is a kind of opening a door for you to go back. So what do we expect him, even in that situation, not to go
So
to God?
my answer to you, still within the realm of the Torah, my answer to you is the Mishnah in the 8th chapter of Yom Kippur, Masechet Yoma. The Mishnah says, someone who says, I'm a traditional Jew, I do ma'avirot, and then I go to confession on Yom Kippur, give a little money to the Knesset, and everything is halil, everything is small. So, someone who says, I'm going to do avirot and do teshuvah, so his avirot are genuine, his teshuvah is not. Why do you expect that every opportunity in the world will be given to you ad infinitum? You just constantly keep on doing whatever you feel like doing, and always you can do teshuvah whenever you feel like it. So that may be true, or may be more true, if your mistakes are genuine mistakes, and your teshuvah is genuine teshuvah. If you have in the back of your mind, I promise this is the last time until I do it again, then you aren't doing teshuvah. What's wrong then is your understanding, and your understanding needs to be broken. It needs to be broken. No, you can't keep on doing this to me. You cannot keep on abusing me. You can't keep on ignoring me. It could be Hashem, it could be a person. It doesn't really matter. If your mentality is such that you just abuse things to no end, then you're expecting Hashem to enable this. You're asking Hashem for money to buy heroin. This is helpful to you? The money's the problem? A little more is going to do it? One more chance, one more try? It's destroying you. So, Hashem will not allow you to keep this vicious cycle going. He'll interrupt it. What you might need is a real interruption of your reality, and then you'll put the pieces together afterwards. But sometimes things really need to break before they get better. Think socialist countries. So, I'll leave you on that. We'll, 'tis the season, Everybody loves the Santa Claus concept, but then you gotta pay the credit cards at some point.